What's up, everybody, and welcome to 94.1 WWLLMP. I am your host, the Local Lizard Man, and I'll be giving you my highlights, lowlights, and flybys of what I've been playing and watching, as well as discussing a certain topic of conversation, ending the show in a rotating segment. What could today's segment be? You'll see when we get there. Now, I'm going to try and make this first section go fast. I can't English today. It's a problem I had at work, too. See, today is my Game of the Year episode, so we're going to go over a bunch of different categories, probably some not your usual ones, but a lot of them will be like, yeah, that makes sense. But first, I'm going to talk about the games I've been playing. I took a few of them off to help shorten this, mainly ones like I've played more Hatsune Miku Project Future Tone, and I played more Fire Emblem Warriors. Not much really to say. I've just played some more. It's the same game. I haven't gotten like a big story moment or anything like that. But we're going to start out with PUBG. Now, yes, I talk about PUBG all the time, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But the big thing is, it is 1.0 now, so it has a lot of these features in that were only on the test server. Yes, I'm still sick. But the biggest thing, I've been playing on the Xbox One. Now, the Xbox One version is not good. So, one of the biggest problems I have, when you first land, you will get down there, and I know this is a problem I have. I can't speak for everybody. I have an Xbox One S, so it's not the X or anything like that. I have to wait for buildings to load in for me to go inside of them. That's a problem. When you land in a high-populated area, and you have to wait for buildings to load in, so you're like standing there just running around, hope you're not getting shot by someone who has like an X, or for some reason buildings load faster than me. That's a problem. But once you get past that, it plays rather fine. I honestly find it so much easier. My highest amount of kills I have in one game on PC is 4, I want to say, maybe 5. The other night I had 2 8-kill games on the Xbox One, and I played maybe 5 games. And there was only one game I ended with no kills, which is highly unlike the PC version. So they have to work on it. It has performance issues, and I just find it very easy. It's kind of why I like playing it. But at the same time, I like the PC version because it's more challenging. Another one I want to talk about is I played Hellblade. That game is super good. It kind of... Well, you know what? I'm going to save it because we'll be talking about that later. I also finished Life is Strange Before the Storm. Episode 3 released. Episode 3, I feel like I didn't get the full experience. And that's because I don't want to spoil anything. But there are 2 endings. And I chose, we're going to call it the safe ending. And the safe ending, I feel like maybe cuts it short. So I'll probably end up going back to get the other ending at some point. But I really enjoyed it. I felt like it didn't have as big of a punch as I expected it to have. But you know what? It was fine. It was good. I enjoyed it. Life is Strange Before the Storm as a whole, we will talk about later as well. But the last game I played. Oh, buddy, the last game I played. I played Doki Doki Literature Club. Now, those of you who don't know what this is, or those of you who think you know what this is, Doki Doki Literature Club is a psychological horror game that is in disguise as a dating simulator. It took me roughly 4 hours and 50 minutes to complete it, and I'm going to say about 3 to 3.5 hours of that was normal dating simulator behavior. So it takes a little bit to get into it, but let me tell you, the payoff is well worth it. I don't want to talk about it too much because I know a lot of people who are still going to play it, but oh, it is so good. It breaks the fourth wall at the end, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say this. You want to play it 3 times. That's what I did. The first time took roughly 3 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours, maybe a little longer than that. The second playthrough, which when you finish it the first time, again, this isn't this isn't spoilers. This is just giving you hints to make sure you get the full experience. When you finish it the first time, you'll know when you finish it. It'll take you back to the menu screen. And right above continue, there is another thing for you to click on, which is a whole bunch of weird letters and symbols. Click there. It'll start a second playthrough, and you'll notice it a little odd, and then it gets odder and odder. Then the third playthrough, I'm going to say probably took me maybe 10 minutes, if that. But after the third playthrough is the real ending of the game. So, as weird as it's going to sound, you play a dating simulator for 3.5 hours, and then you play one of the freakiest things I have seen in a long time. I am totally not kidding when I say that. That's the scary thing. It messed with me to the point where I had to turn lights on to sleep. So that's what I've been playing, and like I said, I wanted to keep it short, sweet, and to the point, because for this next section, well, this is going to be a doozy. You see, this section is so meaty because it is my Game of the Year section. I'm going to go through best looking. Now, okay, I want you to remember something. When I say what some of these are, like for example, best looking, you might not agree that any of my games even should be in that list. That's okay. I say best looking, I really should say my favorite looking, my favorite surprise of the year, favorite music, favorite world, favorite debut, favorite style, favorite PSVR game, favorite story, and the big one, my personal top 10 games of the year. So no longer are these titles best, they're favorite for everything. So we're going to start with favorite looking. All right. The way I did this is each topic, there are 3. And 2 runner-ups and a winner. I got a lot of these from Giant Bomb. I got a lot of the ideas from Giant Bomb on how to do this. Go check out their podcast, their Game of the Year podcast. There are 5 of them that total about 25 hours in length. They're long, but they're fun. So, favorite looking. For number 3, we have Horizon Zero Dawn. It is such a beautiful game. And not only that, but everything is so finely crafted. The robot dinosaurs and creatures and animals, like all the robots, are very excellently executed. They all have like cords and wires that kind of look like muscles and skeletal structure, and like they're crafted to be mechanic, but at the same time look almost organic. It's such a well done, well crafted world. The different tribes are very different. You can tell everyone apart. Just this world is an amazing place to just run around in, and I catch myself just looking around and being like, wow. And I mean, as crazy as it sounds, that's the best way I can put it. Wow. Now my next runner-up is, and I am going to get a lot of flack for this. I know and accept this, but I have a reason behind it. My runner-up for best looking is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Now, the world is not great. There are textures. There are a lot of problems. Yes, I acknowledge this. But I come from a gun family in a way. My father has, if I had to guess at this point, dozens of guns. And we watch gun shows together all the time and stuff like that. So guns are a big thing for me. With this being started based off of a mod of a military shooter, naturally stuff like that is done very well. And it is. The UMP5 in the game mimics the UMP in real life. Like everything about it. When you put these modifications on it, like the stocks, the scopes. Now, granted, some scopes are not. The 8-time scope, I don't know why, but it still goes on backwards. That's just a thing. I don't get it. But like scopes will change to fit more with the style of the gun. So if you get a 4x scope and put it on an AK, it'll look different than if you put it on an M4 to fit with the style of the gun. And they make the guns so beautiful in this. Not only that, shooting, the way shooting is done with the drop distance and everything like that, it all looks wonderful. It's very realistic, and that's what I absolutely love about it. That's why something like this will always take precedence over Fortnite for me, or something like Fortnite, I should say. Not a knock against Fortnite, but I'm not a big fan of the cartooniness it represents. I love the realistic shooting aspect of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and that's one of the things that draws it to my best looking. Is I love the way all of that looks. But my winner for favorite looking game, there was a game that came out this year that everyone was waiting for. Everyone knew about it because of the way it looks. Even if they're not into that kind of game, everybody knows Cuphead. It mimics this 20s, 30s era cartoon. Everything is hand-drawn. It was a 5-person team, a family. A family made this game. A family of 5 animated everything in that game. It just looks amazing. It runs steady at 60 frames per second, which is something that animation style isn't meant to do. They have done such an incredible job making this game something that even people who don't play games know about it because they've seen it. Cuphead is my favorite looking game of this year, hands down. Now, on to best surprise. For my number 3 position. Now, it goes to Doki Doki Literature Club, which I finished last night. What I'm going to do, when I say now, I'm going to give myself a minute. I'm going to try and hurry up and tell you why this is such a surprising game, but I only have a minute. I don't want any spoilers, okay? So when I say now, I'm starting a stopwatch. And when a minute's up, you can go ahead and unpause, unmute. I guess unpausing wouldn't help because you'd still be at the same time, but unmute, fast forward, whatever. A minute starts now. So Doki Doki Literature Club is a psychological horror that's masked as a dating sim. But the big thing is players, like people in the game, start killing themselves off, like committing suicide. And then you start the second game, and the one character is gone because she committed suicide the first time, but it acts like you don't know who she is or anything like that. So you have to like try and figure this out. And then like things start, like computer programs start going haywire and everything like that. And then you find out like another person commits suicide near the end. And it was crazy to watch. And you find out that Monica, the main girl, was like hacking into the game and making these players act like this. And you have to actually go into the game's files on Steam and delete the character. And then start a third game and the other characters are back, but the one character remembers everything. And you have to go in and the game actually deletes all the files from the game. So you can't play it again. You have to delete it and reinstall the game in order to play it again. It's amazing. Fourth wall boundary breaking. A minute's up. All right. You can come back. I just gave my reasons why Doki Doki Literature Club is in my best surprise. And maybe after you finish the game, come back and give a listen. I swear I have a reason behind it. Now, my next 2, I'm not really going to talk about too much because let's just say they will be talked about in my official Game of the Year list. And they are my runner-up, Resident Evil 7, and my best surprise, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Again, I'll mention why it's in this category once we get to the Game of the Year talks, but there really is a reason. Best music. Sorry, favorite. I need to change these on my phone. I have them as best everything, but really it's favorite. Because everyone can argue about, something not having great music and something else having, and that's fine. Everyone's in different tastes. My number 3 would have to be Persona 5. Persona 5 music is just amazing. You'll never see it coming. It's this really upbeat, pop stylized. If you played Persona 4, you'll understand what I mean. It's kind of hard to describe, really. But it's this upbeat, stylized, you know, thief music. It's really weird and hard, almost like a jazzy style to it. And it works so well in the game. I know a lot of people who are turned off when the actual vocals start. I personally really like them. But that's my number 3. My number 2, I'm going to be honest, this was really hard. Really hard to choose from. My number 2 is Pyre. And Pyre, again, I'll be talking about later for a few reasons. But Pyre's music, Darren Korb, who has done the music for Transistor and Bastion, I'm positive at this point this man can do no wrong. And again, for Pyre, it's got that, most of the songs have that, like, almost old westy country tone to them, but at the same time being a little faster paced, and it really fits the style of the game. But not only that, I listen to that soundtrack daily while I'm at work, while I'm in the car. That soundtrack is so well crafted, so well made, and I can't stop listening to it. It's just such a fun time. But I have to give best music to another soundtrack I listen to on the daily. In fact, I listened to it, the entire thing, at work today because I could. Nier Automata, the soundtrack is just incredible. It fits so many different tones, and when the producer was going for a vocal system to use in it, it's not Japanese, it's not English, it is a made-up language that he thinks we would have in so many years, that's kind of like a mixture of Japanese and French. So almost all the vocals in this game are made-up language. That's amazing, because the language fits with the tone of the game, but all the music is so different. Everything from Beautiful Song, which is my favorite song on the soundtrack that plays during one of the boss fights, which is almost a much more operatic sounding to it, to Emil's theme. Emil is one of the merchants that you can buy stuff off of, which is kind of just this like upbeat, almost kids-like tune with this person just speaking gibberish. It's so different and so wild, but it fits on so many levels. Next, I want to go into is Best World. Now, Best World can be taken in many different ways. Sorry, Favorite World. I really need to get used to that. Favorite World can be taken many different ways. One of the ways is a world that you love going in and exploring. But the way I'm looking at it, when I name these 3, I mean, these worlds are great because of the lore that's been given to the history of this world that has been created. So my number 3, to mention it again, goes to Nier Automata. I call it Automata. I hear Automata. I call it Automata because it just feels better coming off the tongue. Nier Automata. I'm going to be honest. Playing the game, I don't have the best time. It doesn't play the best. That's why I can't, like, if this were for, like, a world you enjoy running around in, Nier would not be anywhere near the top of this list. No pun intended. But they set up this lore, this history of this world, and it's so rich and inviting that the story laid out here of the game itself and of the history of this place is breathtaking in scope. That's why it's on this list. And to go above and beyond that, my next runner-up, which it's hard to believe that it's a runner-up, Horizon Zero Dawn. The story of this game is the lore of the world. That's why it was really hard to kind of choose how I wanted to do this, but the story of the game is the lore of this world. And the way they set it up, and I'm going to be honest, spoilers for Horizon Zero Dawn here. Go ahead, skip about a minute of that if you don't want to hear it. But the whole world was created. These dinosaurs, these robotic creatures are here because they built a machine that was trying to fix the world, and it didn't work. And that's why there's only so many actual animals and creatures in that, because it failed. But you learned this history of what happened to Earth as we know it, what happened to the human race. It was just so interestingly well done, and I loved every minute of that. That was what kept me going. As soon as I hit a point in that story, I'm like, I'm not doing any other side stuff. I can't right now. I have to continue on. I have to know what happened. But the biggest one for me to fit best world is Pyre. Now, this game is played in almost basketball-like sport ritual thing, and via static screens like a visual novel. That's how this world is played out. But they created such a rich backstory for the downside, why you're there, what this place is, the history of this place, the what is going on in the above world, like what is going on up there, what the point of all this is. They made such a beautiful story behind the actual story, and I can't give them enough credit. I will officially announce right now, Supergiant Games is easily one of my favorite studios out there, and they have yet to fail me. Next up, we're going to go with Best Debut. This one, there were a bunch on here that I had a hard time choosing, but I chose to go with. I have to give number 3 to Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. It wasn't perfect. I absolutely loved that game, and while there were things about it that needed fixed or could have been done better, considering this was the studio's first game published by themselves, they didn't have all this scope to go off of from a publisher or anything like that. They did a great job, and I'm so excited to see what they're working on next. So while I don't think it's exactly the debut of the series, I'd say even though this studio has released games before, this is really their debut, because this isn't them being told, we have to make something like this, or you can do this, but you have to do it this way. This is them saying, this is the story we want to tell. This is the game we want to make. My runner-up has to go again to the magnificent Cuphead. This is Studio HMDR. One of those two. It's four letters. Those 4 letters in a way. This is their very first game, and it took them, was it 7 years to make this game? I'm not upset by that. Look at the finished product. It was amazing. I'm so excited to see what this studio can do. But the biggest debut I have to give is to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And again, I'm not really going to talk about it here. I am going to talk about it in my Game of the Year topics. Spoiler alert, yes, it makes my top 10. But that's one of the ones I want to save everything for, so I can give you a real good reason why it is on my list. Now, best style. There are 3 games here. One I honestly haven't finished yet. But all of these, as soon as I thought of best style, as soon as I heard it on Giant Bomb, I'm like, I know exactly which 3 I'm putting on there. So first up, I have to give it again to Pyre. That game's art style is breathtaking. Like I said, it's a lot of still images, stuff like that. So it's not anything, oh my god, spectacular, that. But the art style used, the way the rights are done, the animation style used for the rights, everything is so beautifully artistic. I don't think I need to talk about Supergiant anymore. I have given them enough credit, but God, they are so good. And Pyre, well, honestly, when Pyre came out, I'm like, cool, Supergiant. I like them. I'll play it at some point. After playing it, I regret not playing it sooner so I could champion it out to people sooner. Game is amazing in every aspect, and the style it throws off is beyond almost every other aspect of this game. My number 2 for best style, I have to give to Persona 5. Now, this is the game I did not complete, but though I didn't complete it, doesn't change the fact I know that this game has something very special going for it. And that very special thing that this has going is this game is style incarnate. That's the biggest thing about this game. It is stylish AF. And everything from the battle menus, the regular menus even, to the music. The music is super styling. Even to the menu that comes up after you finish a fight. That is super stylish with the music playing. This game oozes style. And I say that, and it's still second on my list. And the reason being, I played Yakuza 0 earlier this year for review, knowing nothing about that series. And that's why you may see... Never mind, I only have one more thing after this. But Yakuza 0, the Yakuza series has been around for quite a long time. But this was my first entry, and I went in with no expectations, no idea what I was getting into. This game oozes style out of every orifice. Yes, I said that how I wanted to. This game, from the way the characters act to the way fights play out, the music, when you encounter somebody, this stylish way of saying who you're encountering appears on screen. These heat attacks are super stylish when you have it happen. The way scenes play out, everything about this game is style. The city that they created, now I say created, it is based off of 2 places in Japan, but the way this takes place in the 80s, the way they have set that city around for that time, everything, just the style is magnificent. Like, I don't... The sad thing I'm saying this in, I'm not overstating it. Like, it is that well done. It is that creative, that thought out. It's impressive on every level. I just... That is my favorite style because of the way it just pours out of it in droves. And you know what? I'm going to save Yakuza 0 because we're going to be talking more about that shortly. We have 2 more categories here before we hit the big one. So my next category is favorite PS VR game. Now, I had a really hard time boiling this down to 3, because there was a 4th one. I have to give props to this 4th one, the Soulless Project. That game is super fun to play in PlayStation VR. That's really the only way I want to play it. You can play it with controller, but I don't find it as fun, honestly. Like, it just fits the PSVR style, exploring this planet that you crash landed on, trying to figure out what happened here. It's just so exciting, adventurous even. My number 3 I have to give to a game that came out 6 years ago. It came out 6 years ago. I played about 30 hours of it on PlayStation 3 and then got bored. Well, they released The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim VR for PlayStation VR. And I thought, all right, this may be my time. I'm going to give it another shot. Honestly, that first weekend alone, I played over 10 hours of it because that world is just so exciting to explore in VR. The vistas you can overlook. Yeah, it doesn't look amazing. But you know what? As you're doing the Skyrim mountain climbing that Skyrim is famous for, and you look down, dear Lord, I am afraid of heights, and I made a huge mistake when I did that. Needless to say, I pretty much stayed on the... still have a cold. Needless to say, I pretty much stayed on the path the entire way after that. My next runner-up has to go to Resident Evil 7. This was really the first full-fledged title that could be played in PlayStation VR. You can play the entirety of the game and almost all DLC in PlayStation VR. And let me tell you, the first time I popped the game in, I was playing it in PlayStation VR. And I think I know what a heart attack feels like now, because I'm pretty sure I had a few. That game freaked me out so hardcore in PlayStation VR because of being right up there to the action. And minor spoilers here. When Mia starts going crazy and cuts off your hand with a chainsaw, it was all up in my grill. All up there. When the eldest Baker member cuts off half of a guy's head with a shovel, all up in the grill. I was watching it right in front of me. It was amazingly well done. Amazingly well crafted. But I have to give my favorite PlayStation VR game to Super Hot VR. When I first got this, I heard a lot of good about this, but when it first came to PlayStation VR, I picked it up because I'm like, all right, I'm going to have a week to myself, no family, only a little bit of work. I get to relax. So that first night, I played 3 hours of Super Hot VR. What this game is, you have to move around. You have to pick up guns, pick up items. Time only moves as you move. So you have to look around. You have to try and dodge bullets, dodge enemy attacks, all this stuff while using your actual body. At one point, in order to not be shot, I actually laid down on the floor and then slowly got back up so I could watch and make sure I didn't get hit as I got up. It is that intense. The next day I went into work, I was so incredibly sore. And I was sore the rest of that week. This game was the best workout I've gotten in years. It was so fun, and all the time I'll go back and be like, I'm going to play a little Super Hot. And play it and be like, man, I am out of shape. But it is just so much fun. If you have a PlayStation VR, I can't recommend Super Hot enough. If you don't have a PlayStation VR, you might want to look at Super Hot VR, and that may change your mind on it. Now, we're going to go with favorite story. Resident Evil 7 is my number 3, which is almost hard to believe. You know what? I'm just going to tell you about the story now. You know what? No. I'm going to save this. You'll find out shortly why. I'm going to save everything I have to say about Resident Evil 7. My next runner-up is Yakuza 0. Now, this game, again, going into it, I had no expectations, had no idea what I was getting into, and I knew nothing about the series. I thought it was going to be like an 8 to 10 hour beat-em-up adventure game. Like, all right, whatever, fine. I could use something like this right now. What I got was a 35-hour, at least 35-hour action soap opera with such a grand display the entire time. Like I said, at least 35 hours, at no point did I get bored of the story. I only got sucked in more and more and more. This game had such an enthralling story with so many threads that came out at the beginning and then tied themselves and weaved nicely into the final plot. It's amazing how much they were able to do in scope of this game story, and it just impressed me to no end. I said in my review that this game might come up in my Game of the Year discussions, and it for sure is, because guess what? This game is spectacular, and it, to me, is better than... This was an amazing year for gaming. Amazing year. And this game, even though it came out on January 24th, breaks down all of these things that came after it. Especially in story. But I have to give my favorite story to The Evil Within 2. Yes, you may not have expected to hear that here, especially if you have played the first Evil Within. That game's story is kind of bonkers, to the point where at the end it didn't make the most sense. But like I absolutely loved the first game. I thought it was so much fun. I thought the premise behind it was so cool. The story wasn't great. That was honestly its biggest weak point. But they fixed it with the second one. And this game is rare in the fact that, honestly, I think the story only gets stronger as it goes, and it never weakens. The end of this game was honestly probably one of my favorite ends of any game this year, or even in a long time. I think the way they wrapped it up, there were honestly like 3 times where I'm like, oh, the game is over now, but it wasn't. And I wasn't disappointed in that, because they're like, oh, they made this worth it. They made it worth continuing here. They made this story into something more. And at no point did I think they were going too far with it, too extraordinary, too extravagant. It all fit nicely into it. The Evil Within 2 has a nice, refreshing take on the survival horror genre, and it helps close out the series in a beautiful way while leaving it open for more. Now, we're going to get on to our main event of the evening. Now it is time for my top 10 games of the year, and I have 3 little honorable mentions that didn't quite make it. First honorable mention I'm going to give is to Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. This ended up being much better than I expected. Chloe and Nadine ended up being such a fun duo to spend time with. And honestly, I think I liked this game better than Uncharted 4, to be honest. Because, I don't know, it just felt more fun. It felt like it flowed better. It just felt better in general, which is kind of odd considering it started out as a DLC. My next honorable mention I have to give, and y'all are going to think I'm crazy, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think this game is incredible. Everything from the artistic route it takes, to the way it presents itself, to the way the world lives, like the way they made this living world, I think it's incredible. But there are I should say at least one major flaw, in that I think that game is so boring to play. But I know I'm highly in the minority, and pretty much everyone else loves this game except for 1 or 2 people. But I have to give it an honorable mention because I think almost everything about it is extraordinary. Just, playing it was not fun at all. The last honorable mention I have to give is to a little indie game, a Chinese indie game actually, called Icy. That's been out on PC on Steam for I think since 2016, but came out in August of 2017 on the PlayStation 4. And I played this at PAX East last year and really enjoyed what I played. And the game is so fun to the point where you have a narrator talking the whole time, but sometimes you just don't want to listen to him, and it gets really funny and fun and interesting. Now, on to my actual top 10. This is where I will go into more detail on each thing, on why it is there. So at number 10, I have Nier Automata. Now, this game, I just finished Route A the other day. And I think gameplay is its weakest point. I think story, music, art, literally everything else is amazing. But I have to rank this higher than Legend of Zelda because I at least have some fun while I play Nier Automata. It could be better. I'm not a big fan of Platinum games. Let me say, this is the Platinum game I've enjoyed spending time with the most out of all the ones I've tried. But this game has such an interesting story, and I know I'm only part way. I know how the story turns out, and it sounds incredible, and I can't wait to continue this journey. Honestly, that's what I'm going to be playing for the next couple days. I want to try and beat this game as soon as I possibly can. At number 9, we have Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This is their first game that they have self-published, and they call it a AAA indie. And honestly, it fits that moniker very well. I found myself at times I would stop and look out over the horizon at this world, the sunset, the mountains, the beach, everything. It was just so beautiful. Along with that, I enjoyed the story of this girl's fight, her struggle to survive, to find the person she loves, to find the truth. It was... I have depression. So while it's not the same thing that this game conveys, which is schizophrenia, it is not that far off. And at times playing this game, I felt myself getting entwined in the character because of that. Because it was like, I see what the metaphor is here. I see what they're going with. And that really touched me. And that's one of the reasons that's on this list. It hit me hard in a way I needed to be hit. Number 8, we have Nioh. Now, I haven't said that name at all yet today, but Nioh is such an incredible game. It is a samurai Dark Souls game, is the best way to put it. You are an Englishman who goes to Japan and ends up on his trip learning the way of the samurai. Now, that story is based on a real person. That is all truth. What follows isn't exactly where you fight demons, skeletons, hell beasts, spider women, all these different things. That probably didn't happen. I'm not going to say it didn't because I wasn't alive in Japan back in those days. But it is a Souls-like game in every sense of the word, where if you die, you lose your... what is it called in this game? I can't remember what they call it, but like the currency, like how Bloodborne has the Blood Echoes and Dark Souls series has souls. This has the exact same thing. And if you die, you lose them and you have to go back and get them. They're the shrines, which are essentially like bonfires. It's just so interestingly Dark Souls-ish, but super different at the same time. Dark Souls is a very open world setting. This is done in the style of levels. So there are like 5 levels on the main island, then 5 on the next, then 3 on the next, then 4 on the next, then 3, then 5. It's set up like that. But there are so many ways to replay levels. There's so many reasons to replay levels. That game is so fun. And granted, I'm much more powerful now, but I can almost beat the first boss without getting hit once, which is kind of amazing because when I started playing Neo, I wasn't that good at that game. But between playing that, Dark Souls 3, almost platinuming Bloodborne, I feel like I've become a much better gamer for playing that kind of game. And Neo was right there with me on that journey. That's why it has a good spot on this list. Number 7 is the one and only lovely Pyre. Pyre I've talked about quite a bit. It is the story of these people who are stuck down in the downside and have to perform rites to try and get back up to the outer world. And there's an even deeper story than that comes out about what should happen should they return to the upworld, what their plans are. And the characters are so well thought out and fleshed out in dialogue, and everything about this game is so tightly done and neatly done that I'm trying to think of any loose ends in there, and it doesn't have any. You control how many people go up to the upside. You control who goes up. You control the destiny of all these people. And it's just so amazingly well done. The art is incredible, the story, the world, the music. Almost every piece of this puzzle fits perfectly into place. And that's why it's on this list. Number 6, we have Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I'm a big fan of Guerrilla Studios. I love the Killzone games. I love them to death. This is so different than anything they have ever made. And they went from a pretty linear first-person shooter gray-brown series to this open-world, nature-driven landscape of robotic dinosaurs and tribes and villages, and it is so different but so well crafted. I know a few friends who don't enjoy the game at all. That's okay. I can understand their complaints because it's how I feel with Legend of Zelda. But I personally think, now remember, this is my personal game of the year list. I personally think this game is incredible. The story of this world, why it's the way it is, the music that plays in the background, the sounds crafted for the creatures, for the wildlife, for everything. The combat, I enjoy shooting that bow and arrow so much. This game is phenomenal, and it is one of the reasons I wish more people had a PlayStation 4 so they could experience this wonder that is one of the best games of the year. Coming in at number 5, we have Life is Strange Before the Storm. Now, this is where it's going to get kind of spoilerish. Episode 3 ended weaker, but I thought episode 1 and 2 were so strong that it remained on this list and at this high spot. It was so emotionally touching. I liked Chloe in Life is Strange, but that was it. I liked Chloe. Nothing more. But with this series, I fell in love with Chloe. I fell in love with her character, who she is, what she's been through, what she is doing. You learn to respect and care about this character even more. And then you have Rachel Amber, who we know in the first game she just disappeared. And this story did not give me the closure for Rachel Amber that I hoped for. But it gave you more about why Chloe was so close to her. It gave you more about who she was and why she was important in that world in the first game. Life is Strange. This was created by a different studio, Deck 9, which Don't Nod made the original one, and they're making the season 2. So I was honestly scared going in. They found a way to make it perfect fitting into this world. And I'm not going to say it's better than the first game, but it's not worse than it. And the first game was incredible. This game deserves to be on this list, and I can't wait to see what future they bring to this series, even if it is with a new cast of characters. Number 4, The Evil Within 2. I dove into this a little bit earlier. You know, I enjoy the Evil Within games. I enjoy what they do. The first one, really good, massive story problems. Second one, really good, almost no story problems. They really tightened up the series and made it what I liked about the first one and what I thought the first one could be. And this second one is everything I thought it could be, honestly. That's why it ranks so high. That's why I enjoyed it so much. They did such an amazing job with this game, and I can't recommend it enough. If you like survival horror, The Evil Within 2 is a must-play, in my opinion. Now, the top 3. These are the ones, especially 1 and 2, I'm going to talk about somewhat extensively. The third one I've talked about quite a bit already. Yakuza 0 comes in at number 3. That game just surprised the hell out of me. And I didn't realize that not only was it the kind of game I wanted to play, but it was the kind of series I wanted to play. I played Yakuza Kiwami as soon as it came out. I have the collector's edition of Yakuza 6 on pre-order. I have Yakuza 4 and Dead Souls. I'm playing through that series because Yakuza 0 made me fall in love with these characters, made me fall in love with this story, made me fall in love with this world created, this stylish piece of art that is Kamurocho and everything. There is a video store you can go into and watch live action videos of women in bikinis just sitting there playing on like beach balls and stuff like that. And the video ends with a look at a tissue box. Yeah, that's strange, but there's also karaoke. You can do karaoke, which is so incredibly fun. You can race circuit cars. There's underground wrestling rings. This is some of the weirdest stuff I ever thought I'd be saying, but it fits so perfectly into this world. You can go bowling, and if you get a turkey, they give you a chicken. He's called Nugget. It's just a chicken that you hang out with. And it's like, what? Okay, because it fits right into everything it does. Yakuza 0 is such an incredible game, and it's another one I cannot recommend enough to people. I can't. Yakuza 6 is coming out in March, and I am so freaking excited. Now, my top 2. I'm going to dive into these quite a bit more than I expected. So, get ready. At number 2, we have PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. There are a few reasons why this makes such a high mark on this list. Let's look at the first reason. It is a multiplayer shooter. A multiplayer thriller, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't really play multiplayer games too much. At all. I played Destiny 2 for like 2 weeks. I played a little bit of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Was it Fighter Squadron or whatever? The ship flying one. I played a little bit of that online. That's it. I don't play really many multiplayer games. Yet, here I am, 375 hours into PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So that's a thing. Yes, that game is amazing. Now, the reason it fits up here, not just because of that, I mean, unless you were living under a rock, you had to have seen what kind of influence this game has had on gaming in general this year. Every game needs to put out a battle royale mode now. Every game. But even more than that, you know, I look at I've played, a bunch of, I don't know, Battlefield 1 last year. And I can't really tell you much about it. I had fun. I remember some of the things I did, but I can't be like, oh, here was this match and this happened. I can be like, this happened at some point. I don't remember who was on my team or anything like that. But PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I remember every chicken dinner I've ever gotten. I remember how the games ended. I remember who was on my team. I've gotten a bunch of chicken dinners, and I remember all of them. This game, every match is an experience. Every match is a story. And when I end up surviving until there's 40 left, I didn't shoot anybody. I haven't even seen anybody. And all of a sudden I get hit. I'm like, well, crap. All right, I know I did something wrong that was so easily seen. I don't get, kerfuffled by this game. I don't get distraught over this game. It makes me want to learn to be better. It makes me want to learn from my mistakes. This game is unlike anything I've ever really been into. And it just makes me smile playing it. I have a ton of time with friends. I have made some great friends because we were in a Discord together and they said, hey, does anybody want to play? And I've made great friends with some people because of this. This game has transcended just being a game I played for fun. It has taught me a lot of things. This game has helped me beat depression, like points of depression in my life this year. This game, hanging out with friends while playing it, just playing by myself, hanging out with the friends I made because of this game. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has, in essence, partly changed my life this year. That's why it's my number 2. That's why it's the best debut. That's why it's one of my biggest surprises. That's why this game is on this list, and honestly, I had a hard time not putting it as number 1. But number 1 also had a strange effect on me. And that number 1 is Resident Evil 7. Now, Resident Evil 7 is not without its faults. The last 2/3 of the game, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of a spoiler here. Last 2/3 of the game, the whole part with the ship is not great. But what this game does, I think is. I'm a big Resident Evil fan, and Resident Evil 5 I enjoyed. But it was a lot more actiony. I'm like, okay, this is fun, but not really what I wanted. Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 6 is a good action game, but it's a bad Resident Evil game. I was really let down and disappointed by it. Then, the trailer for Resident Evil 7 played on the Sony stage at E3 last year. Not last year now, I should say 2016. And I didn't know what it was. I was just watching it and I'm like, yo, this game looks creepy as hell. And they're showing that trailer and it comes up 7 Resident Evil, and I'm like, holy shit, that was Resident Evil? That's not Resident Evil. Holy shit. I'm excited. And it was one of the few games I can think of that on that day they're like, it will be released on this day. And on that day, I picked the game up because it came out. And it was about just over 6 months later. There was no delay. That game was done. Now, when I gave it best story, the reason behind that is it is a tale of 2 stories. And the main story the game tells you is the story of Ethan, of his fiance, of the Baker family. It's a very down-home story that if you've never played a Resident Evil game before, you won't really get everything going on in the background. But if you have, there's a second story that's told. And it's continued with the free DLC that came out, Not a Hero, in December. That story is the background story. That involves the Umbrella Corporation. That involves the science behind it. That involves the bigger picture of the world of Resident Evil. This game did a good job of putting in there for both of the people playing, whether they be new players or returning. This game, I beat it the day I got it. They actually sent me home early because they knew I was so excited about it. And I was completely okay with that. It took me 10 hours to beat it my first time. I played like an hour the night I got it. Hour and a half maybe. Then I played, I don't even know if I played any in the morning. Then I got home from work at around 1. And I played it up until we had to record the podcast that night. And when we finished the podcast, I continued. I had it beat in half an hour. And what did I do? Started over from the beginning on a different difficulty. And I can't tell you how many nights in the following 2 or 3 weeks I stayed up till 2 or 3 in the morning playing that game. I have never once tried to speedrun a game. I speedrun Resident Evil 7. I'm down to sub 2 hours beating it. That game has had such an effect on me. One of the reasons it's one of the biggest surprises is because that game took this formula that has never been involved in a Resident Evil game, this first-person camera perspective, and brought it into Resident Evil, and exploring that house felt more Resident Evil than that series has felt in a long time. They did such an amazing job with Resident Evil 7. Yes, it has problems, but looking at the bigger picture, those problems are so minuscule compared to what could have happened, compared to what this game accomplishes for the Resident Evil series. I'm so excited to see where this goes continuing on. I'm so excited to see Capcom deciding, hey, we're going to go out of comfort zone here and do something crazy. And that's why it is my game of the year. As someone who is a fan of this series and watched it grow and then watched it deviate and crumble and fall, and now watching it rise from the ashes into something better, this game is astounding. And it is my number one for all of these reasons. So, to go back over that list with you, I actually put my phone away, so that's why I have the list. At number 10, we have Nier Automata. 9, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. 8, Neo. 7, Pyre. 6, Horizon Zero Dawn. 5, Life is Strange Before the Storm. 4, Evil Within 2. 3, Yakuza 0. 2, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And 1, Resident Evil 7. There is my Game of the Year list for my top 10, as well as a couple categories and what I think did the best job of showing off why games are so amazing nowadays. Now, let's get into the very last segment of the day. And this week, I'm ending with the rotating segment landing on Streamer of the Week. I want to give a shout out to my good friend Eurimeed. She's a variety streamer that streams everything from Neverwinter to Stardew Valley to, hell, I even had her playing Resident Evil 4. I was so proud of her for playing that. I think everyone should go give her a check out. She's a really good streamer, really good friend, and I always have fun in her channel come chat, hang out, and show her some love. Thanks, everybody. That finishes it up for this week on WWLLMP 94.1 Radio. Thank you, and remember, good night, YouTube. Good night.